Thank you, Lauren Ludwig. You know, it's an appropriate song because we're beginning a new series today called Summer Vacation, which is taking sort of the themes of a summer vacation or a summer trip, whether you like going to the hills, you like going to the beach, or you like going to the valleys, or like we did on our mission trip headed toward the mountains. And so today for our message, we're going to have something unique happening a little bit where we're going to hear from some of our missionaries and some testimonies of things that they saw, that they experienced, that they dealt with, that grew them spiritually, and the impact that they saw on the people that they met, and all the wonderful things we'll hear about that. But to sort of frame that conversation that'll happen up here, I want to invite up Nathan Chitwood, who organized this trip and really was, the spearheading of what went on to kind of tell us about the trip from beginning to end and give us some highlights. So.
Be interested in going, and then most importantly, we wanted to have an opportunity for our people to interact with maybe a group of people that they don't normally get exposed to. So we've had the opportunity to be on an Indian reservation, and then this time when we reached out and found a church in Colorado Springs, they do a lot of work with the unhoused, and I knew that would be an opportunity for us to be able to interact and support them, because that's not something that we typically see around here on a daily basis. We know it's there, but we're not really exposed to it. So we started setting this up. They actually have a pastor who, her sole focus as part of their church is to work with the unhoused in the community, Carrie West. And when I called her about a year ago, she had just started in her role with the church. So me calling her and springing on to her that we'd like to bring about 30 people out really caught her off guard as well. So we worked together throughout the year to figure out how we might be able to help them serve their community. And as time got closer, I kept calling to ask, okay, what can we do? Because we've got more work than you'll ever get done. Okay, because I'm bringing a team that can get stuff done. And so we got there, and Russ and Steve and Drew had called ahead and kind of organized things. They took some of their tools, so we knew what we were going to do. So we started out, we arrived there Saturday afternoon, kind of got our bearings about us. Sunday morning we got up, went to church service with them. And then Sunday afternoon we split up, and some went to a museum, others went to a state park. And then Monday morning we really started the work activity. A crew went a couple blocks down to clear out a parking lot. They were going to do a family service thing there, and they needed a fence and parking lot redone. Well, they thought that would take 2 or 3 days, and by mid-afternoon that team pretty well had that job done. And another thing they wanted, they have a family promise group that they help sponsor. In that program, they work with maybe families that are having trouble at home and they need a place to go quickly. And so they may bring a mother and kids into this part of their church, and they have a kitchen there, they have shower facilities, and they allow these families to stay there until they can kind of get back on their feet, and then the church and the community maybe helps them get an apartment, helps them get furniture and those kinds of things, so they can then go out on their own. Well, they had a leak in a sink in that area, and before we went out there, Russ thought we might be into jackhammering and all that kind of things, but he and Drew went down there, and luckily all the leak was above ground, and they were able to fix that relatively quickly, so that was also done on Monday. We thought that might be a several day, but they got that knocked out on Monday. And then they have lots and lots of donated items that literally were just stuffed in a room, actually more than one room, 2 or 3 rooms. And I knew with the OCD group that I had with me, that wasn't going to last. So turned Tammy and Tina Ray and several others loose in that room. And I think we asked them to bring us 60 totes. And I think they had that all filled pretty much by Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening as well. And then Drew and Seth and some others built some shelving, portable shelves to store all those totes on. So they had a label maker, got all the clothes organized. And so Tuesday afternoon, I was kind of concerned because we were literally running out of things to do on the list. I mean, there's an extensive list, and 2 or 3 people would go do this and do that, and the list started dwindling. And people were coming to me saying, hey, what can we do? And so I was a little concerned that here people had taken off time from work, away from their families, and I feel like we've kind of run out of things and we got some idle time. Wednesday we knew was going to be a fun day. So we got up and went to Garden of the Gods fairly early, not real early in the morning, but got there kind of before the crowd did. Spent several hours Garden of the Gods. Some split up and walked a 2.5 mile, whatever, and others of us took a shorter walk and did a lot of driving. So I was glad about that. That afternoon we came back. Some then went to Seven Falls. And so I was really concerned that Thursday, all we had planned was to help serve a meal to the homeless at noon, serve lunch. And I was really concerned that Thursday was going to be a wash. I mean, wasn't going to have a whole lot to do. But about 11:45 Thursday is when things really changed for us. The ladies had started cooking lunch for 10:30. About 11:45, the unhoused were lining up outside waiting for lunch. We started taking chairs out to them, got them all seated. And then we really had an opportunity to interact with those who are less fortunate than us. And that was really the thing that I think everyone took away from the mission trip. Yeah, we got a lot of work done at the church, but Thursday's what's really struck home to us. And I told the group I was glad we did that at the end of the week instead of the beginning, because that's what we left Colorado thinking in our hearts, that we're very fortunate, but we were very blessed that we were able to interact with those who are far worse off than us. And we just sat and listened. You know, they were very courteous, they were appreciative, and so we supplied the meal for them on Thursday. And then we had some extra we took to 2 or 3 parks. Some of us walked, some of us went to a farther away park. And I don't know who else is coming up on the panel, but I hope the story gets told of Grayson and his interaction. Somebody on the panel may be sharing that. So Thursday afternoon, we just kind of wrapped things up, did a few more things, cleared some bushes, I think, away from a sign, and did some work on a post there in the parking lot. And then when we left Friday, we spent the night in Salina, Kansas. The group kind of thought we didn't want to drive it straight through, so I asked earlier in the week, you know, we'll get to Salina Friday night. By Saturday afternoon, we'll be home. He said, why can't we just drive home all day Friday? So to tell you the kind of group we had, the plan was to get up and start packing at 7 a.m. on Friday morning and be on the road by 8. Well, I'm a very late sleeper. By the time I woke up, about 3/4 of the people are already packed. A bunch of luggage in the middle of the floor. I think we started packing at 6:30 and we was on the road at 7:15. So that made a trip home very well, very easy. A couple hours we'd stop. We had I had Russ as my navigator. We only had one bad turn, but he was on break, I think, at that time. But he and Tammy found a mom and pop buffet that we stopped and had lunch at on Friday afternoon about 1 o'clock, and then we were pretty well able to make it the rest of the way home. So we arrived back about 8:30 Friday evening. So yesterday was like a free day for most of us because we didn't think we would be back. So that was kind of nice. So I want to thank the church. We had lots of financial support, prayer support, food support, but want to thank all of you for the support that you gave to us as we were representing our church. And I know the crowd, the group did a phenomenal job. Centralia United Methodist Church, and we travel, we get stuff done, and you've been very proud of each and every one of them. So thank you, and look forward to hearing what the rest of the group thought of the trip.
Thanks, sir. Thank you for your ministry, taking care of all those things so the rest of us can can show up. I think a lot of times because of my title as the pastor, people would ask me questions about what was going on, and I could just gleefully tell them I have absolutely no idea what is happening. You got to talk to Nathan or Russ or Steve or Drew or somebody that does. So I'm going to invite some people up that have gone on the trip. Russ Greene III kind of organized a lot of our work projects inside and outside of the church. And one of the cool parts about our trip is that we're going to talk more about this, it's intergenerational. It's not just one thing. And so we have Morgan Hahn, who brought her family on the trip, and she's going to bring that perspective. And Susanna Nix is one of our youth kids who is leaving us for college this coming year, but she'll be able to bring that perspective. And Cindy Cummins joined us, and it was her first time going on a mission trip. And so she's going to be able to offer some perspectives surrounding that. And so, Morgan and Russ, if you guys want to share what you've got there, and then Cindy and Susanna will share that. So, one of the first questions that I kind of want to offer everybody is we have returning people who've gone on multiple trips, and Cindy who went on the first one. So, Cindy, why go? Like, why do it? What drew you to want to go for the first time?
Well, one of the reasons that I joined the church in the first place is that I kind of had a pulling to want to do things for the community, and what better way to do it than with and through a church. So when Nathan approached me and asked me if I wanted to go on a mission trip, I'm like, sure, why not? And so I'm glad I went. I would go again. Mm-hmm.
And you even represent some of the intergenerational aspects of our trip too, because your mom went.
Exactly.
Which is pretty cool too.
yeah.
And so I think it speaks to the idea that, there was so many different, we'll talk about this a little bit with our theme scripture, but there's something that everybody offered, no matter who you were, your age, your experience, or anything like that. So what about those of you who have gone before? Anybody can speak to this question. Why go back? Why not just say that was a great experience for me and then move on?
Well, for me, whenever I first heard about the trip, it was from my parents. They said, oh, we're planning a mission trip for this summer. Do you think you could come? And at first I was kind of like, I don't know, like I've got a lot of money to save up for college. I need to be working. But then I feel like I've come to church often enough and heard Pastor Sean talking about how the only true way to serve God is to get out of your comfort zone. You have to do things that make you uncomfortable to serve others. And so that made me think, I don't really want to go on this trip for personal reasons, but I should want to go on this trip for spiritual reasons and for reasons to help other people. And so I just thought to myself, what other perfect opportunity is going to come up for me?
Yeah, that's really cool.
One of the reasons that I wanted to take my family on this trip was that the Montana trip was 6 years ago. At that point, the kids were 7 and 9. Now they're 13 and 15. Their experiences are different. What they'll notice is different. What they'll remember is different. And I think for all of the things that Centralia is, and what a wonderful place it is to raise your family, what it doesn't give is the difference between what we have and what others don't have. And so sometimes you have to take your children outside of this town to get them that experience.
So the reason on go on this trip is, it really is a good time to get focused on Christ, get focused on your relationship, and I didn't really realize that when we got back, and Steffi told Nathan, we haven't seen TV for 7 days, and so you really are focused on your faith and your community and service, and it's just it's a lot of fun.
So how did you, again, you spoke to this, and so I'll piggyback on it, but it doesn't just have to be you that answers. But how do you feel like you grew spiritually as a result of your time? Just passing it off.
My role in this panel, I think, is to speak as the mom of children. So for me, watching my children learn what else is out there and then how they respond to those situations. Do you want me to go ahead and tell the story?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely do.
So on Thursday, we were providing this meal. A lot of people had come to the church. I don't know how it happened, but my 2 kids ended up in the serving line. Grayson had to ask every person that came through whether they wanted mayonnaise, ketchup, or mustard, which forced him to speak to other people he didn't know. And then Mallory was handing out the tomato onion and lettuce. That's what it was. And so they had to speak to all of these people. And this one gentleman came through. His name was Chi. And he happened to ask Tammy how he got one of these green shirts. And she was like, well, you've asked the right person. And she ran the full block up and down multiple sets of stairs in this building to go find her bag and get that green shirt and brought it back out to him. And we go on serving, and the meal is basically over. People are hanging out. There's a few people coming up, and this gentleman comes back and brings a football. And he says, I bought this football earlier, and I didn't know why I bought it, but now I know. And he handed it to Grayson. And it's just a football. It's nothing special. Grayson loves sports. He loves to play. That would be his ministry if you gave him the opportunity. So the meal ends up being over, and this football's just laying on the table, and Chi's still over in the grass across the parking lot. And I was like, buddy, why don't you go throw the football with him? Why do you think he gave that to you? So the next thing we know, out there across the way for everybody to see, for over half an hour, Grayson was just interacting with this man. Didn't matter that we were from two different worlds, from two different generations. They just were able to bond and just have some fun. And so just watching that experience unfold was really neat for a lot of us to see.
It makes the kingdom of God seem so much bigger, and not just theoretically, but actually, when you see instances like that. So anybody, you're allowed to shake your head no at me. It's okay. I can move on. I have other questions to ask. How you felt like you grew spiritually as a result of your time last week?
For me personally, it also happened on that same day that Morgan was talking about, whenever we got the chance to interact with the unhoused. And we knew like the entire week leading up that it was going to be happening. And whenever we had our meetings at night, we would like have meetings where we discussed scripture and what it meant to us and how to serve people. But at those meetings, we would talk about how we planned on helping people and how we thought that we would change our beliefs and change our actions towards them. And that entire time I was kind of thinking like, I'm like a very tolerant person. I'm definitely like not judgmental at all. And I was thinking to myself, like, I'm a good person whenever I was at those meetings, thinking like I could help the unhoused, and I'm really like very empathetic with it. But then on that day, I was making food, and then once that was done, I went up and I saw the serving line, and I thought to myself, wow, like I'm just so unacquainted with this. I think to myself that I know what it's like, and I don't. And I think to myself that I'm unjudgmental, and I'm not. But just having that opportunity to see people and to realize that the unhoused population is just the same as us. They're people, and they deserve food, and they deserve love. It really changed how I see a lot of things.
Yeah, it's really good.
We kind of discussed this in Sunday school. I'm going to piggyback off Grayson and Jack. But again, like you look at these people and, you try to not judge them, because a lot of them are, truly in this community, were just down on their luck. And when they came to that church for that meal, they felt the love not only from us in the meal, but from the church itself. Because I think they feel a connection to that church and that community because they do so much for that community.
Yeah. So it sounds like the consensus of the spiritual growth just came from experiencing more of God's people, right? A different environment, a different type of people, and having a different type of relationship with different people, which is what it's all about. And I even felt that way, personally for me, I felt that way about even the people that we traveled with. I think one of the benefits of the trip is that you get to know people at a deeper level, not just through the conversations that you have at this organized sort of, devotional time, but also just as you're working and as you're playing cards and as you're eating. I think that, a lot of people probably got to see a different side of their pastor that they probably hadn't seen before, which was a lot of fun. And I got to know you all on a deeper level, and that grows me spiritually, because when we come back here, we rely on one another to do life together. When we grow and when we learn to have a deeper connection with others, makes us more into the kingdom of God that we're intended to be in. So I think it was this well-rounded, both the collective that went and also the people that we had met for the first time, I think made it particularly unique. So what thinking about the work that we did and the people that we met, what is your biggest hope for the church that we served and the people that we encountered and the community that we were serving in? What's your biggest hope for them?
I think that probably the biggest hope for me for that church is that they just grow. I think that church felt to me that there was a little bit of a schism of where they've been and maybe where they need to go, and that church is able to follow that path, but because where they're located in the community that they can serve, that they continue to grow in that ability.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? What are our hopes for CMC Colorado Springs or the community itself?
I would just hope for them that it would seem to me that we went there to do this work to support this ministry, and a lot of what we did was really behind the scenes work, except for the meal on Thursday, which was much more out there in the public, but that they would use the resources that we've given them, the tools that we've given them, that they can now kind of take some ownership in that and make that Family Promise program grow, and be more of a useful tool, and that the members of the congregation would be able to use it.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we felt like we were fighting against, and the congregation fights against, is I think Tony's the one that told me, so tell me if my number's off. This church is 120,000 square feet on like 5 different levels. It's massive. Like Morgan attested to when Tammy went to go get a shirt that she walked like 5 blocks. That was just in the building. And so we would get thousands and thousands of steps every day, and most of them felt like they were just going to and from the bathroom or like whatever, because the church was just so big. And so I think they actually fight that to some degree, that they have some resources within the church that even church leaders might not even know about at this point, because the situation that the church is in. So most definitely. And you all were key in making that happen. To know the resources that they have and be able to offer it to the community, I think is absolutely going to be key. So any other thoughts or testaments to that question of kind of what we hope for the church or the community around them? Okay. Our what I'll call is our shirt verse, or kind of our theme verse for the trip picked out by Tammy Chitwood, shout outs, came from 1 Peter 4:10, and it's on the screen here. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. How did you all see this verse play out throughout the course of the week? Like how was that a measure of what our team lived out this past week?
So I think that we have, and Tony spoke a little bit about this a few different times, about how we have a wide range of talents and gifts that our group has. And, from everything from, any military strategist knows that an army marches on its belly, and there's nothing better than coming back from a long day of work and having food already prepared and already ready for you, and that was great. So there was just a lot of blessings within our group amongst each other, with all the gifts and the talents that we had that we're able to deploy for God's grace.
And I would say that we had several people who are skilled and talented in specific areas, and then we had a whole lot of worker bees who are really good at doing what we're told. And you deploy us out there, and we will complete the task, even though we may not be the most skilled with our tools or have the most OCD or whatever it is. We can follow the lead of that leader, and we can get things done. And I see that here at our church. I mean, our church is very involved, our members are very involved in the things that we do, and we just took our Centralia way of thinking to a different church and deployed it there.
And I know a lot of it too isn't just about the actions, which I just want to say that everybody was like so great with their service, but I think another aspect of this is what just the community that you feel whenever you're talking to people. I know we have a few talented talkers among our group that went, and
that's a way to put it.
Talented talkers.
And every night it was just so great to, even though if I'm not saying much, just to hear other people's stories and to just feel like a community together. And I feel like that's another form of service to God.
Absolutely. Most definitely.
And again, I agree. We had a lot of great leaders. I never felt like that I was not knowing what I was doing, even though I would approach a project and say, hey, can I help? And I just kind of felt like they were very receptive to that. And even if I was just handing screws or nails or whatever, I felt like I was helping, and I felt like they felt like I was helping. So, it kind of helped that aspect, or even just picking up a shovel or something, even though I didn't really know what I was doing. We all came together, got the project done, and it was nice to feel that, we all worked together well, and we had good leadership. And
Yeah. I think one of the ways that really plays out that is unique about our mission trips, growing up in the culture that I did, we had sort of youth mission trips, and then we had adult mission trips. But the idea of an intergenerational mission trip, I think, is A, so much more sustainable, but then B, just provides something for the older generation and the younger generation that sort of our segregated ones don't. Here's a picture of our oldest missionary and our youngest missionary at the same time, and that was just a super cool part of that. But how does that dynamic play out? I think a lot of churches would kind of say, let's have the youth have theirs, so that way, they can kind of stay out of the way of the adults, right? And then the adults can go on one where we do different types of work that aren't bogged down by the presence of younger people. So how does the dynamic of an intergenerational mission trip play out? What does it practically look like? And what difference do you think it makes?
I mean, I think it was great just for my kids to experience the intergenerational aspect of people within this church. To be honest, we gravitate towards things that are focused toward kids and families in the church, and maybe not the things that are focused towards older adults. And riding in a van across the long state of Kansas, you're forced to interact with people. And so you get to know people on a different level, and then you work side by side with those same people. And then you take that home and you remember that. And so my kids end up knowing our church members better, even though we're here together every Sunday. And so it strengthens our relationships at home.
Totally.
I feel very similar to what Morgan was talking about. They're able to just see different perspectives. And the area that I saw this at the most was, and I talked about this a little bit before, but usually like every night we would have a meeting where we would all get together and talk about the day and talk about how we thought that we could improve our service to God. And at that meeting, I would be like, whenever a verse or a question was brought up, I would be thinking one thing, and then somebody from like, say, a different generation would just say something completely different from what I was thinking, but very, very related to the answer, and just something that I would never have thought of myself, but just with that different perspective, I was able to understand the issue and maybe the solution to that issue just more deeply.
I'll open myself up here to ask a dangerous question. Just remember, we're in church. What's your best memory, or what's lasting? And that can be both from something that was fun, or something that just kind of left kind of a stamp on your heart. What's your favorite memory?
So we've talked a little bit about Thursday being a really important day for us, and we were the church was serving. I was out corralling the couple block area trying to find other people to be sure they were invited in, and I saw a young lady in a yellow t-shirt, and I went and gathered her in and walked with her in the church or to the parking lot and said, okay, just go ahead, and if you like dinner or lunch, just stay in the line. And she stopped, and I went to do something else. I turned around, she hadn't gone anywhere, so I ushered her a little closer, and she got close to the line, but then I left. I thought I did my job, and then I turned around, and she was still standing 2 feet away from the line. So ushered a little closer, and then people started handing her food, and she went down, and she was always very, holding her hands like this, and very appreciative and very, thankful. And then she got to the end of the line, and she had her food, and then Laurel hugged her, and they both started crying. And so just that vision of her being so appreciative, and her crying, and Laurel crying, and them hugging was memorable for me.
I mean, I think mine is Grayson out there playing catch with that other gentleman, just being his own natural self in an unnatural environment, but connecting with people at the level where they are was really memorable.
For me, I feel like a lot of my favorite memories have already been talked about. The Thursday event that happened on Thursday where we fed the unhoused. But I also want to bring attention to a little bit of the sightseeing that we did. And whenever we went out to Garden of the Gods and we went on that little hike there, everything there was just so beautiful. The sky was so big, the trees so green, and the rocks, they just jutted up to the sky. It was all so beautiful, and it just made me realize that, like, this is all God's creation, you know? Like, not a single thing here is not where God put it. And it was just so beautiful, and I loved those memories.
It was very beautiful. We had beautiful weather. Again, Thursday was great. We were walking downtown. Me and Lee and Mom went downtown. I took a little break one morning, and as we were coming back, there was a gentleman sitting there, and we said hi to him, and he said, "Please pray for me." And we said, "We absolutely will." We invited him to come to the meal, and he says, "I'll come." He says, "Be sure and look for me." So we were looking for him over in the area, and I saw him over there. Yeah.
That's cool. The last question that I have is just about the culture surrounding mission trips. And, you know, for me, I don't. People have been part of our church for various years. This is the first one of these we've done in 5 years. Is that right? 18 was the last one. Of course, you had kind of a global pandemic thrown in the middle there, which kind of messes things up. So I had not. This was the first one I've been around for. Maybe somebody else is in the same boat as me, or just hasn't kind of caught the just how deeply rooted this is into our church culture. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that our church gravitates toward this type of effort? Why is it part of our church DNA almost?
Well, I think our church is a church of doers. I think that we enjoy mission-focused things, and we like having a plan put out in front of us. We like to have goals, and I think we like to work together. And I think that we like to believe that we can serve the greater community outside of Centralia, and we do it better when we do it together.
And for me personally, I think it's easier in some ways to do mission work when you're not at home. At home, I'm worried about, is the laundry done? What are we having for supper? Is the yard mowed? All these other things. I have none of those concerns when I'm 600 miles from home, or whatever the number was. I'm there to do one job. I'm there to do one focus, and then those experiences will strengthen me when I come back. And I do have all of those other surrounding things that still have to be done.
And I know this group worked well together, because I know that every time they knocked one out, they were looking for something else to get done. And like Tony said in the past, that this church has been recognized as the one that did the most work and in a most short amount of time.
Who let the air out of Lauren's mattress?
Cooter.
Yeah. I won't speak to that at this time. If you have any other questions or comments, you can find us after service. Can we thank our mission team for